The opening months of 2025 have already brought a noticeable shift in the tone of global affairs. Military activities that once appeared routine are now loaded with symbolism and intent. Large-scale exercises involving thousands of troops, advanced fighter jets, and naval fleets are being staged not simply for training purposes, but as deliberate displays of power. These operations serve as carefully crafted messages to rivals and allies alike, signaling both readiness and determination. The world's most influential nations are no longer hiding their strategic ambitions. Every movement, every exercise, is meant to be seen, analyzed, and interpreted as part of a broader geopolitical game. In Eastern Europe, tensions are rising to levels not seen in decades. NATO forces and Russia find themselves in a prolonged standoff, with each side strengthening its positions along critical borders. While official statements stress that direct conflict is not the goal, the atmosphere suggests otherwise. High-tech weapon systems are being deployed, intelligence-gathering operations are intensifying, and the presence of foreign troops in sensitive regions is becoming the norm. For millions living near these zones, the daily reality now includes military aircraft overhead and the constant hum of armored vehicles, a stark reminder of how fragile peace can be. Far to the east, the Indo-Pacific region is experiencing its own escalation. China's assertive posture in the South China Sea has entered a new phase, marked by increased patrols, expanded infrastructure on disputed islands, and sharper rhetoric against foreign interference. The United States, along with key regional allies, has responded by reinforcing its naval presence and conducting freedom of navigation operations. This dynamic creates a tense environment where even a small miscalculation, whether a near collision at sea or an unexpected military maneuver, could trigger a much larger crisis. The stakes here are enormous, involving not just territorial claims but also the control of critical trade routes. At the same time, the global economy is showing signs of vulnerability. The supply chain disruptions that began during the pandemic years have not fully recovered. Shortages in key industries, volatile commodity prices, and inflationary pressures are placing immense strain on both developed and developing nations. As governments struggle to stabilize their economies, public frustration grows. This economic unease doesn't just affect wallets. It influences political decisions, fuels protests, and heightens the risk of instability in already fragile regions. Adding to the uncertainty is the rise of cyber-related threats. What was once the domain of hackers targeting personal data has evolved into large-scale operations aimed at financial institutions, government networks, and even energy grids. These cyber incidents are often invisible to the public until their effects are felt. Markets disrupted, services halted, or critical infrastructure temporarily shut down. Nations are investing heavily in digital defenses, yet the reality is that no system is entirely secure. In the digital age, a single breach in cyberspace could have consequences as significant as any traditional military strike. What makes 2025 particularly risky is not a single flashpoint, but the combination of many pressures converging at the same time. Historically, major global conflicts have rarely started with one isolated incident. Instead, they emerge when economic stress, territorial disputes, political mistrust, and technological competition all collide. In today's world, these factors are intensifying simultaneously. Governments are stretched thin, diplomacy is under constant strain, and even small disputes risk spiraling into something much larger. The interconnectedness of our era means a crisis in one part of the globe can quickly influence events thousands of miles away. Energy politics are becoming another critical fault line. With global demand for oil, gas, and rare earth minerals at an all-time high, nations are competing fiercely to secure long-term supply lines. Strategic choke points such as the Strait of Hormuz and the Taiwan Strait are not only vital for energy transportation but also represent geopolitical leverage. Any disruption in these areas, whether caused by political tensions, sanctions, or conflict, could send shockwaves through the global economy, affecting everything from manufacturing to everyday fuel prices. Energy security has become inseparable from national security. Adding to the complexity, alliances once considered unshakable are shifting in real time. Some countries that were firmly aligned with Western powers are now exploring closer ties with Russia or China, while others are pursuing more independent foreign policies. These realignments reshape the global chessboard, altering long-standing defense agreements and trade partnerships. For international observers, the pace of these changes is both fascinating and alarming. Old assumptions about friends and rivals are becoming less reliable, making it harder for governments to predict how different actors will behave in a crisis. The Middle East continues to be a region of high volatility. Ongoing proxy conflicts, religious divisions, and competition for regional dominance are drawing in outside powers in ways that complicate peace efforts. While diplomatic initiatives are ongoing, progress remains fragile, and even small incidents have the potential to derail years of negotiations. The involvement of multiple foreign nations in these disputes often adds fuel to the fire, as competing interests collide. For the people living in these areas, political decisions made in distant capitals often have immediate, life-changing consequences. Meanwhile, Africa is emerging as an important, though often underreported, stage for global competition. The continent's vast reserves of minerals, oil, and agricultural potential have attracted the attention of major powers seeking to secure future resources. Investments in infrastructure, trade agreements, and security partnerships are accelerating, but so too are concerns about exploitation and sovereignty. While this new wave of interest could bring development opportunities, it also risks turning parts of Africa into arenas for strategic rivalry, where local priorities may be overshadowed by the agendas of faraway capitals. The United Nations, once seen as the ultimate platform for resolving global disputes, is struggling to maintain its credibility in the face of these escalating challenges. Veto powers within the Security Council often block decisive action, leaving urgent issues unresolved. While the UN continues to play a role in humanitarian aid and peacekeeping, its ability to enforce binding resolutions on major conflicts is increasingly limited. This perception of ineffectiveness can embolden nations to act unilaterally, further weakening the rules-based international order that has, for decades, sought to prevent large-scale wars. Global trade is entering a period of fragmentation. Economic sanctions, counter-sanctions, and trade disputes are reshaping how goods move across borders. Instead of a single, interconnected global market, we are seeing the emergence of competing economic blocs, each with its own trade agreements and supply chains. While some countries are adapting by diversifying partners, others are finding themselves excluded from critical markets. This fragmentation not only affects economic growth but also undermines the interdependence that has historically acted as a deterrent to conflict. Technology, which once served as a bridge between nations, is now becoming a point of division. Advancements in artificial intelligence, autonomous weaponry, and hypersonic missiles are transforming the way militaries operate. Nations are racing to develop and deploy these technologies, creating an environment where a sudden breakthrough could tip the balance of power overnight. Unlike traditional arms races, these technological competitions move at lightning speed, leaving little room for diplomacy to catch up. The absence of global agreements on how to regulate such technologies adds another layer of unpredictability. At the societal level, unrest is building in many parts of the world. Rising living costs, job displacement from automation, and growing distrust in political institutions are fueling waves of protests. In some regions, these demonstrations have already turned into prolonged political crises. While public dissent is a natural part of democracy, prolonged instability can make nations more vulnerable to external influence or internal fragmentation. Governments must balance the urgent need to address citizens' concerns with the equally urgent need to maintain stability. Climate change is amplifying all of these risks. Severe floods, prolonged droughts, and extreme weather events are disrupting agriculture, damaging infrastructure, and forcing mass migrations. In vulnerable regions, these climate-related challenges exacerbate existing tensions over resources and borders. The pressure to secure food, water, and safe living conditions is adding to the already heavy burden on governments. Without coordinated international action, climate stress could become a major driver of instability in the years ahead, turning environmental issues into matters of national and global security. One of the greatest challenges in 2025 is that many world leaders appear focused on short-term political victories rather than long-term stability. Domestic politics, election cycles, and public opinion often take precedence over comprehensive strategies that could prevent future crises. This creates a dangerous gap between immediate political priorities and the structural changes needed to address deep-rooted problems such as inequality, energy dependency, and global governance. Without visionary leadership, nations risk being unprepared for the very challenges that could shape the next decade. Some analysts argue that a large-scale global conflict is still unlikely. However, history offers a sobering reminder that wars often begin not through deliberate planning, but through miscalculation and underestimation. A diplomatic misunderstanding, a military accident, or an economic collapse could quickly escalate beyond the control of those involved. In a world where communication is instant but trust is fragile, the margin for error has never been smaller. The real danger may lie in how quickly a minor crisis can evolve into something much more severe. The central question moving forward is not simply whether tensions will rise, they already have, but how the world will respond when pressure peaks. Will global powers find common ground and reinforce diplomatic channels, or will competition for influence override cooperation? The outcome will depend on the ability of leaders to balance national interests with collective stability, a task that is far easier to discuss than to achieve in practice. For individuals, understanding these global dynamics is no longer optional, it is essential. The events unfolding in distant regions can influence everything from fuel prices to job markets and technological access. Staying informed allows citizens to make better economic and personal decisions in an unpredictable environment. Being aware of the interconnected nature of today's world also helps counter misinformation and fosters a more realistic understanding of both risks and opportunities. Ultimately, 2025 could be remembered as a turning point. It might be the year humanity steps back from the edge, choosing cooperation over confrontation, or it could mark the moment when divisions deepen beyond repair. The choices made now, by governments, institutions, and individuals, will echo for generations. The global clock is ticking, and while no one can predict the exact outcome, the responsibility to shape it lies in the hands of all who understand the stakes.